has been so collective in putting this party together for her. So I personally thank you guys to show so much love for her. And the question I have is, how do we get her arrested one last time? I mean, if we were really going to give her what she wanted, we would actually find a way for Connie to get arrested. And I'm not really sure how to do that, so that's been Judy would love to actually get arrested with Connie. So there's a petition, I think, going around that is the petition that might get her arrested. I don't know. But if you guys could help with that as time goes on, I'll be really happy as her son, because I'll know that she got what she really wanted for her birthday. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for coming, and my mother's going to come up here and say a few words.
Actually, I'm planning to fulfill that wish my son just announced. Judy and I have been plotting, and it's time that we had at least one more, even though my son doesn't think I should, one more civil disobedience action to put on my record. I mean, the police don't have enough quite yet. This is the one. So Judy, Allen, and I are talking about, she's much less senior, of course, but to have a group of some of us who are seniors show up in the Pipeline and Indian Point and do one good solid action and get busted. Judy? Yeah? That's in the plan. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Ross. Anyway, thank you. That's my wonderful son. I have a few things to say, which is why I pulled the stool over here, because maybe it's more than you want to hear, but I do want to do some thank yous. First, thank you to this fantastic committee, mostly women, all my sisters, who did such an incredible job in creating this event. Both carrying out this part of it, but also the preparation and the food, Jill with the food. Everybody has just been extraordinary. And working so hard all day, you know. And then I made life more difficult by providing a bunch of petitions for them to put out, so have everybody sign. I think that's okay with you all. I want to thank John Cronin. John has done this before with his red shoes. And I told everybody if they wanted to speak or have anything to sing or do, look for John with the red tie and the red shoes. There he is. Thank you, John. Thank you so much. And thank you for the dance. I want to thank all of you who come from so many different pieces of my life. Not anybody back to the 9 decades, but you're here from almost every part of the spectrum of my world of activities, and I thank you all. Some have come from long distance, and that is extraordinary to me. I appreciate that so very, very much. Yeah, including California. Besides my son, one of my former students is here from California, just departed. I'm so grateful, so touched. I want to appreciate my sister and brother Scorpios. So I know there are a few that I hadn't named originally, so would you Scorpios who are here just raise your hand? Being in this church at this time with a crowd of wonderful sisters and brothers is also a little poignant for me, because 6 years ago we had a memorial here for my my soulmate, Art Camel, who died in November. And we had a memorial here in December. So it's bittersweet, but I'm glad we're all here together. I'm glad that John mentioned the Gettysburg Address and the importance of November 19th, because that meant so much to Pete. Pete loved the Gettysburg Address, and we're so happy it was on my birthday. And in fact, on the lovely array of my stuff which Tina put together, Matthew, there is a poster from somewhere between 2 and 3 years ago when Pete came down to Manhattanville and spoke. And everybody was amazed. He recited the Gettysburg Address, which is very favorite for him. And it so touched the president, John Strauss, and it's particularly his wife, Jean, that she spent the next month memorizing the Gettysburg Address. And I'm so happy to tell me to, please tell Pete I got it. You know? Anyway, that's a poster with Pete and John Strauss and with the Gettysburg Address. So it's kind of a nice mounted recollection of what has meant so much to Pete and for me for as many years as I can remember, knowing that my birthday was on the Gettysburg Address. I'm very grateful for that. Grateful to my mother and my father, I guess.
You decided when you were coming out.
I'm sorry?
You decided when you were coming out.
Oh, thanks, Mom.
They planned ahead.
But, what I want to say a bunch of things, but this is a good time for us to be gathering and celebrating each other. Not mourning. We've been past that. I'm not sure if it was Joe Hill who said don't mourn, organize. But this is the time to organize. After November 8th, it's time to organize with the spirit of excitement and hope that we can generate. And I want to quote something that Martin Luther King had said, which both John Cronin and I both shared as a very important message that has to be overriding in everything that we do. And I'll make reference to this again. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. If we really believe that, as Martin Luther King did, and he didn't speak of it from some lofty, he spoke of the arc bending towards justice from the Birmingham jail. He spoke of it when he was marching. He spoke of it when he was in the hardest of situations, fearful and under such great stress. But he believed this, and I do. I know John does. We hope that all of you will carry that message as we have this very significant struggle ahead for us. You know, we have seen some very dark days in our past, and we've come through. But for people of color, for Black Americans, for Native Americans, dark days have been here from the very beginning of this nation. And it's really important that those of us who are white, so-called white, remember that. You can't wipe out that racism that goes back to the very first days of slavery. You can't wipe out the attempted genocide of our First Nation. And that blight is still with us. And has to give us a perspective on how bad things can be for people, much worse than what we, as those of us who are white, experience and can expect to experience. Because for every black family, they live in the shadow of fear for their children every single day. And that is still, that's now. So they're the shadow that we are feeling so significantly and severely since November 8th has been their experience their whole lives, and it's still going on. So I really think that we have to have a perspective about that. Realities, too often for white people, they forget, because so focused on their own fears of the moment and the fear of Trumpism. So standing back and looking at some of our history, and for me, it's a very long history. I sometimes don't quite realize how much has happened in 90 years. And I wanted to share a little bit of my personal story. It would take hours and hours to give it to you all. But I'm very happy to hear that Michael Hogarth is going to be good enough to come with Karen Frillman, who's arranged for us maybe to do a little more in-depth of that history, but the kinds of things that are boring to other people but might be good for those of my family who haven't really heard it, and there'll be no record of it, but there will be. So I'll give you a little bit of what my grandparents on my father's side, my mother's side too, but I know more about on my father's side. Guess what? They were refugees. They were immigrants from the Tsar. They lived in a shtetl in the Ukraine, and with their one child at the time, happened to be my father, they managed to escape to the so-called promised land, the United States. But, to try to reconstitute the sense of fear and worry and concern for their kids. When they came here, then they had 5 daughters and 3 sons. But that's what people are going through right now. That's the refugee, the immigrant picture. That hasn't changed. People are suffering. They suffered then. They've suffered right through. And to get a sense of the reality of that gives us a better touch with what we know we have to do and the changes that we have to make happen. Then when they were here, and I do remember this, there was a huge anxiety in the family about Hitler and the rise of Nazism and fascism in Italy. And it really permeated our lives. We lived for a short time during the Depression with my grandparents. And it was a constant anxiety and awareness that, my God, this could spread and affect us. They've already lived through so much of it. And once again, the reality of fascism, the reality of Nazism, gave me, of course, began to develop a sense of social conscience in me. That was a fear that was palpable. I was 4 or 5 years old, and at 5, my brother arrived. He was 5 years younger. My sister-in-law is here now. My brother, he died a couple of years ago. So he didn't quite feel it the way I did. I was aware how worried everybody was. Well, we didn't really get past that. But then the Great Depression, that's part of one of my 90-year decades, because it was a long period. And my parents were affected by the Depression. We had to live with my grandparents for a while, and fortunately my father, incidentally, I would like to tell you that my father had a band in the Catskills, which is where he lured my mother, I think seduced her, and I came a year later. He also was a self-taught musician, and during the period when movies first developed, and there were silent films, my father played the piano and the organ for the movies, the silent films, you know. And he used to have a good time at home when my friends came over, and he would pretend to be doing this, and chewing gum and putting it under the keyboard, you know. A whole routine just to entertain. But then when talkies came in, he was one of the lucky ones. He was still in depression, of course. He was one of the lucky ones to be able to get a job as a motion picture projectionist. And he learned, you know, to run the films. And as it happens, the union, the motion picture projectionist union, I think Shane probably knows a little of that history, one of my former students, because he works for the musicians union. It was a very strong union, and it was run by communists. That was a period at the beginning of the development of the fight back by unions, you know, and a sense that there is a future if we can work our way through it, you know, and then of course with FDR and the WPA and the other programs, you know, we began to see that happen. And I'm very conscious of living through that. You know, I remember how it felt. But my father was part of the union, and the conversation at dinner was always union talk, union talk, union talk. And when I was maybe 7 or 8, I used to walk with my father on the picket line when we had strikes, you know. And because it was such a strong union, we won most of the time. It was quite amazing. So I got an orientation that you get together with your comrades, you struggle and you picket. Hey, you can win.
Yeah.
And we did so very often, but that really set a whole state of mind for me, which I refer to now because it's so important to me, and it's lingered all my life, you know. And the importance of workers, working class, and unions, how that's what can make a difference in our lives. Then there was Roosevelt, and as I say, the WPA and the other advances that gave people a sense that life could be better, would be better, and was getting better. But World War II, scary, scary time again. Scary. And as I say, my grandparents never got over that sense of fear, you know. I personally lost a number of my friends, my high school friends, who went into the Army. And I didn't know much about pacifism at that time, although interesting thing is I spent half the summer working at a mental institution in Connecticut, and met a young man, worked with me, who turned out to be what I'd never known anything about. He was a Quaker, and he was a CO. He was a conscientious objector, and he was doing his alternative service at this mental institution, you know. And we became good friends, and that introduced me to a whole new world of thinking about how you deal with war and peace, and how you deal with bringing the best instincts into play, making them happen, you know. So that was a whole new perception, which, as you know, has played a very major role in my life from then on. I looked at World War II in another way. Then later, when I met Rabbi Michael Robinson, who some of you may have known from Croton when he was still here. Michael Robinson was a rabbi who was a conscientious objector in World War II. That is really an extraordinary thing. Talk about courage. And he was such a great guy that the temple maintained him. He stayed for years till he moved to California. But that was also a kind of a perception for me, courage, and following what you believe. You know? World War II, just ending, and I'm at the University of Chicago. I was there because I had a full scholarship. Parents couldn't afford it. And my friend here, David McKay Wilson, has sent both his boys to U of C. They're there now. But I was there when the Manhattan Project and Fermi were operating, and the production of the nuclear bomb, the atom bomb, and the dropping on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the awareness of that, and then the beginning of the resistance movement, even at the college at that point, you know, part of my life. Then back to New York. Incidentally, I would have liked to go to medical school, but the attitude about women and about being Jewish, strong enough then, as it is today still, but not, you know, at least in the women's movement we made some progress. I did not get in that first try, and came back to New York. Worked in the medical field for a while. So I was aware then of the kind of prejudices which determine how your life moves, what direction your life moves, you know. And the civil rights struggle. Major piece of all of our lives, and many of you here were old enough, certainly old enough to have lived that, experienced it, and cared about it, and realized the incredibly enormous significance of that movement, you know, in everybody's life, in the life of this country. We're still battling it. We're still. I worked on sending organizers to the South. My kids were very little then, and connecting the struggle for war and peace and racism and economic justice, of course, is what Martin Luther King did, you know, which is why he was killed. Again, the arc of the moral universe, long, bends towards justice. I think we saw that during that period, and we see that for all the struggles that we still have in the civil rights movement, which, as we know, is so manifest in living racism today. Then the Vietnam War. Organizing, 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 organizing. In every way that we could, locally, regionally, nationally. That became such a significant part of all of our lives. Raise your hand if that was a significant part of your life. That's, yeah. And that's when we started Westpac. And Charlie Shiner, who was here, Charlie Shiner, and Charlie. Yeah. He doesn't like to admit it, but Charlie and I started Westpac, and Charlie said to me, well, we were all organizing all over the map in Ossining and in Pleasantville, and I said to Charlie, I think it's time to do something in one place that's central, that everybody can come to, the peace movement, the women's movement, Women's Strike for Peace, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, et cetera, et cetera. And White Plains would be a good idea. And Charlie said, we can't not do it. Charlie, do you remember saying that? Because I will never forget that.
I remember hearing it from you.
We did it. We got Westpac started with, and Westpac was a rainbow. And Nada Carter is here, who is the current, thank God, Westpac is still alive and kicking, and where are you? Nada, there's Nada. And Nada and a couple of other people just came up here today from a very important struggle on the issue of criminal justice.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Kenneth Chamberlain, was killed by the police a couple of years ago, and this is his son who's trying to get some justice for Kenneth, and it goes on and on and on, you know. Anyway, Westpac represented, I think, the whole spectrum of the rainbow. You know, and some issues came forward at one time or another, whether it was always Indian Point and anti-nuclear weapons and nuclear power. You know, that was constant run through. Just as ending racism ran through. But the special things, you know, there was a big focus on women's rights, and I have to tell you that as far as the movement for choice and Roe versus Wade, it's not only important as it is to all of us, but some of us especially like to be, because when I was at the University of Chicago, I had 2 illegal abortions.
Oh.
And with all the fear that went with finding a doctor who was safe and I could pay for, you know, and so on. So I know what that means, and the terrible thing is that today, that's at stake. That's at stake. And that's one of the struggles we have to, you know, full time. But look how far we came, and look how far we've come on almost all of those issues, War and peace, in and out, in and out. You live in a capitalist country, in and out. It'll be a long time before we see that change. But we make incremental changes, incremental. And on some issues, we have been incredibly successful. Incidentally, Westpac was the home to I guess in Westchester anyway, the first gay and lesbian movement, which is now LGBTQ, the Loft. The first home for the Loft. You know, very proud of that. That too is in jeopardy now if we're not only vigilant, but resisting and fighting and struggling, because it's still under threat. It's still under threat. One very successful movement, South Africa, and ending apartheid. And at Westpac, we put a huge amount of effort and focus into struggling to end apartheid and making common cause with the ANC, who living in New York, a group of South Africans who were part of the ANC and were banned, so we couldn't go back. And did we ever think that we actually see Mandela out of jail? That arc. We have to appreciate our wins, our advantages, our advances, our progress, because looking back, it's not insignificant by any means, you know, that arc. I personally was very advantaged in that all during that time. There was also the struggle of Central America, and Connie and Charlie were all very involved in that. And I had an opportunity to get to Nicaragua and to get to Salvador and see what was happening, the good things that were happening in Nicaragua and the death squads in Salvador. I got to the Soviet Union when it was still the Soviet Union, and there were some good things. Unfortunately, the baby was down with the bathwater, and the baby both went down in what we have now in Russia. But it was a good period when there were some good things, despite Stalin. There were some good things, you know. They were not maintained. But I was so happy that I had a chance to be there. I went on the Volga Peace Cruise, thanks to peace people who provide. Carlos Lamont provided some of that, people at FOR. the funds that I was able to go on that. And of course Central, and of course Palestine. Palestine, a struggle. We haven't made enough progress, and we haven't developed enough common consciousness to know what's happening to the people in the West Bank and Gaza, and the extraordinary inhumanity of what, in my view, and a lot of us, Israel is doing there, perpetrating. But that was another part of the struggle that some of us early on. Now, of course, a lot of West Bank has got a wonderful committee, and a lot is happening in terms of trying to advance the cause in the Middle East. One very important period at West Bank, and my dear soulmate Art and I struggled together, was the National Rainbow Coalition and Jesse Jackson. Now, I don't know how many of you felt any kinship with that movement. You know. But in my view, we almost had the potential for a new, real movement. Because it was a movement that was truly a rainbow on a national scale. And it was led by two major elements, which I think is going to be vital for any real party. The Green Party doesn't have it, can't have it. Labor and people of color. Those are the two cornerstones of a new real party. And we almost had it. We almost had a start. The Rainbow had it. We dropped the ball. Jesse dropped the ball in 1988 after that convention. And we didn't pick up the pieces and try to put it together. But we will do it. We will do it. So the message, as John clearly pointed out, we stand on the shoulders of ordinary and extraordinary people.
Yeah.
You will. You're all extraordinary, or ordinary, as you choose to say, but you're it. You're it.
Yes.
We stand on the shoulders of Sojourner Truth, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King,
Yes.
Gandhi,
Yeah.
Cesar Chavez, Fannie Lou Hamer, Shirley Chisholm,
Yeah.
Eleanor Roosevelt,
Yeah.
Joe Hill,
Yeah.
Thomas Berry, Jesse Jackson.
Yes.
Amazing, so that many of these people are women. Wow, what do you think of that? You know, the Chinese have a saying, women hold up half the world.
Oh.
They, 3/4 at least.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, as John has said, we have to keep a perspective on this terrible time and know that we will survive. We'll survive all the damage that the Trumpists can perpetrate. This gang. The Trumpists are a gang of criminals.
Right.
And as usual, the terrible thing is that during this period, when we're going to keep struggling, the people who are hurting most, who will be hurt most, are the people who are most vulnerable. Once again. But, as I said before, no more mourning, Grassroots people organizing is still the only way. It's the only way to affect change. The leaders, so-called leaders, government, are only going to move to the degree that we do what we've been doing, but more so and better and together. And so I have a to-do list. Some of it is right on the table. Hi, David. Some of it is on the entrance table, some petitions I put together. One is a petition to support Standing Rock. And on that petition, it calls for you all boycotting some of the banks that are supporting Standing Rock, like Wells Fargo and Citibank. Get out. Get out. You have options. And it's happening. It's already happened with one of the banks. I don't know, David, you probably know which one right offhand, but there's one bank that's already done that. That's a big job. And it's not that hard to do if we just keep at it. And anyway, there are petitions there on Standing Rock. Another petition. Before Obama leaves office, release Leonard Peltier. It's a major injustice been perpetrated against First Nation, Native people from the beginning. I happen to be incident, this is just a little side. I was on the board of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. I'm wearing their buttons somewhere here. In 1970, I'm trying to think, when was Leonard arrested? Joyce, do you know what year?
96?
Yes,
77.
77.
I was in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, at a national board meeting of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom at the time of the incident and Leonard's arrest. We stopped our meeting, we went to the FBI, and we marched. So I think Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, keep that in mind. It's one of the great women's organizations, which is one of the oldest women's organizations, and still doing good work, still doing a lot of good young people. Leonard Peltier. There's a petition to Obama. Let him out. Get him out. It's time. It's wrong. You know. And if you want to even go further, you can call Obama. You know, the number's on your.
We have cards at the front, little cards at the front that have the White House number for you to call.
There you are. Yeah. In addition to the petition, we have little cards because we showed a film on Peltier in our Movies That Matter, and Joyce arranged all the getting the cards and all this stuff. 202-456-11. And on the do list, I have another list out there for you if you're so inclined. If you're ready to sign to help us organize the Resist Plan against Trumpism here in this part of the Hudson Valley. I know Westpac is doing stuff, but in the Hudson Valley, I call this the Mid-Hudson Valley, we can organize. We can form our resistance movement. We need to know which of you are ready. You know, so don't forget to look at this stuff and sign that before you leave. And the other thing I would hope you will think about doing, if you can, is going to Washington on January 31st, the day after so-called inauguration.
21st.
I'm sorry?
June 21st.
What did I say?
31st.
Oh, sorry, 21st, of course, 20th, 21st. Because what is expected is one of the biggest demonstrations, rallies, marches we've ever seen. Million women march. million women's march, but it turns out it's the core is being organized and it's women, but it's obviously not just women. Everybody's getting into the act, all of the male people, you know? That's
Male people. Male people, don't forget. You're invited too.
It really should be quite an extraordinary event. I have to tell you that I'm so happy you're here. I've been trying to get arrested with Judy, I mentioned that. However, I know I cannot do too much marching and rallying. I'm trying to face that I am 90. I mean, sometimes I feel 110, sometimes I feel 70, 60, you know. But I know that I can't do too much marching and rallying, and I will not be in Washington. But I am ready to keep on helping to pass the torch. And some of that is working with some of the young people down at Manhattanville College and the Center for Social Action. Getting a hand from people like Jill Sternberg, who has sort of been pitching in, and Jill's been helping them get things going there. I can do that. I wish I could do more. There's a time to face certain realities, you know.
Yeah.
So I can organize in this part of the valley too. I can help to do that. But I would love to see you all go to Washington. So, saving the earth, we didn't mention too much of that. Saving the earth and all its life is still maybe the biggest struggle. There's limited time. We've been told we have to face that. I was glad to hear today that at the Marrakesh Morocco conference for continued climate change, as a follow-up on the Paris conference, there was a very great concern on the part of most of the countries about Trump, and a commitment to move ahead no matter what the United States does. You know. So we have our work cut out for us. And as our Native American sisters and brothers demand, 7 generations ahead, at least, for a sustainable earth and all its living things. Now, again, honoring Pete and Toshi, I thought maybe I could read a short poem that I had written a while back to the river. Some of you, I think, heard it last year. Okay. My Hudson. This river, too, is my lover, bathing me in sweet lappings, feasting my eyes on colors of romance and idyllic youth. Dreamed at sunset, luring with its smells of the sexual sea downstream, so short away. Dazzling with excitation of changing, shifting swells and moods, lifting by your seagull songs and sights. The river as steadfast as a lover intense, but as ephemeral as its beams shimmering on the peaks of a moonlit hour. I will love my river with caresses and soft looks and delicate salt air kisses as I do my lovers. In the fairy world of night, barges lit with multicolored sparkle on a balmy June at midnight. Springs my heart, springs my devotion to its ever, forever romance. Truer than any mortal lover can sustain. I surrender to you, my river lover. I will be forever faithful, assured what you give is changing and constant.
Imagine how fortunate we are to be on the planet for all these years with this darling. You know what gives, as I was listening to Connie speak and talk about this important swath of history, what gives me hope almost more than anything is that I think you've seen 14 presidents probably come and go. And you know what? They're all stuck in libraries, and Connie's still here working. Yeah. That's the way it goes. They all leave, and we stay. And so that's why it's always going to be victory on our side. So. Our student friends in Manhattanville, I want to recognize you again, and thank you so much for being part of the Connie Hogarth Center. I work with students constantly, and I say this all the time. You know, one of the other things that gives me an enormous amount of faith and an enormous amount of optimism for the future is the next generation that's coming up and their commitment to wanting to do something different. And I admire all of you in Manhattanville for participating. And always remember, as John Kennedy said, you know, we don't do these things because they're easy, we do them because they're hard. And thank you so much for taking up the fight too. We still have a little bit more music for you. So in fast order, my old friend Tom Stokes is going to say a few words. Dan Heinbender is going to play. The abbreviated Hudson River Scoop Singers are going to play. And Tom, why don't you come on up and say hello? You know, Tom was a pioneer environmentalist before it became such a popular issue in this country. And I've known him for a long time. He's a great friend of Connie's too. So.
What we've just heard from Connie re-emphasizes that she's not only a giant, but a beacon. 12 years ago, I was hired to be the coordinator of a group called the Climate Crisis Coalition. We were charged with a mission to bring awareness to the environmental crisis. Connie was on our steering committee. As noble and as important our mission was, frankly were no competition for Bill McKibben, Al Gore, and others. But thanks to Connie, we persevered. And I think that's a big lesson that I've learned from Connie, is not only that you can be a beacon and a hope, but you must have courage, you must persevere. Connie alluded to the dark, dark times we are now in, and arguably it's very hard right now to be optimistic. In fact, it's been hard to be optimistic if you're an environmental activist or a climate activist, as I've been for some time. because we've known that we're on a very bad trajectory. But notwithstanding how hard it is to be optimistic, we can always have hope. And we can always persevere. And we must be courageous. And to me, nobody exemplifies this more than Connie Hogarth. So, thank you, Connie.
Would you mention how we first met on the Ramsey Clark campaign?
Yes. So, Connie just mentioned about, would I remind people how we first met? Well, 42 years ago, I was trying to help Ramsey Clark get elected to the United States Senate. It happened that as an environmental activist way back then, I knew Pete. I called, and Ramsey had said, well, we're going to, where did we meet, Connie?
At his office.
Well, no, but we met at Indian Point, I think. And Ramsey said, Tom, we're going to take a tour of Indian Point. Would you come with me? And I said, certainly. And I got a hold of Pete Seeger, and I said, Pete, would you join Ramsey Clark and I at Indian Point? He came right there. We talked that very morning. Well, that's where I met Connie Hogarth 42 and a half years ago at Indian Point. It happens that Ramsey perhaps did not have a very strong political good sense, but he held a press conference right then and there and said this plant should be closed. Connie has kept that flag going all the time. But I'll just say, a couple of years later, I happened to be working with John Cronin to organize the Environment Political Party. We tried to be diverse. John could be very persuasive. He persuaded Pete to join us in our effort. Well, the Environment Political Party did exactly, it probably did not embrace the rainbow theme that you so eloquently mentioned, Connie. But we have persevered. And I continue to persevere, and I know many of my colleagues do, and it's people like Connie Hogarth who remain our beacon of hope, and thank you ever so much, Connie.
All right, we're going to have some more music. Hey, you know, I want to read you a text that just came in for Connie. To my comrade Connie, on the occasion of her 90th birthday. Remember that night I sang to you Moonlight in Vermont, and asked you to join me farming hemp in Chittenden County, and you said, there's as much chance of that as you going to the U.S. Senate, you old fool. You will always be my first love, Bernie. So,
even though we all had a good, strong purpose, a central purpose that we shared, and that our values were shared, that there were very few people who were there out of pure love. Everybody else had another agenda, whether they knew it or not, just the same way people do with religion. But when I met Connie, I realized she was the real deal. You meet very few souls like that in your life. And obviously we're here to honor her, so I'm going to sing for her the song she always requests. Whenever I ask her, what do you want to hear? She says this. There'll come a day when the rivers will run again. On their way. There'll come a time we'll cherish the life in our oceans and bay. Let the light shine out across the land that we love. Oh, our rebellion and the way we'll make on the darkest nights. There'll come a day, there'll come, everybody, there'll There'll be equal work for equal pay, whether you reject out or in. Let the light shine out across the land. Let the love flow out and away. We'll wait upon the darkness. There'll come the day. There'll come a day. There'll come There'll come a time when comes the winter. There'll come a day when the homeless will have a safe, warm place to stay. There'll come a time when the hungry, the youngest dies, longer stay. Let the light shine out across the land. Let the love go out and away. We'll bring upon the darkness of the storm. There'll come a day. There'll come a day. There'll come a day. There'll come a day.
Who's going to stay behind and help us straighten up the room? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, okay, more hands. All right, don't forget that you were the ones who had your hands up. It's going to be a bit of work, but many hands make light work, as people used to love to say. The other thing is, please remember that part of tonight is to support the Connie Hogarth Center. So if you have not yet made a donation, please make a donation. If you have already made a donation, please make a donation. There's no such thing as too many donations, okay? I want to bring up Lydia Adams Davis, please.
Connie asked me to sing this song. This is a song which I wrote for S. Brian Wilson. S. Brian Wilson was a very powerful demonstrator. He is a Vietnam vet who chose to bring his Vietnam vets into a coalition of demonstrations against the wars in Central America and Latin America in general, and specifically against the Sandinista situation, age of the Contras. And when I heard about him, I had been searching for a ballad that I needed to write to express my grief and my feeling about the Vietnam War, which is my generation. And Connie asked me to sing this song. It was also a friend named Art Campbell's, one of his favorite songs.
need such an inspiration. It's like Connie Hogarth is part of the air of Westchester County. This song is a shaker hymn, and I find it